The youth that are here, the young leaders that are in this room, provide me with the strength to continue to carry on in the work that I do. So I really wanted to thank you for stepping up and your leadership, because your future is bright and you're going to make the rest of the country bright. So I wanted to share a little bit of my story, of who I am, where I come from, and what I've gone through to get to where I am today. So my great-grandparents are both Indigenous, First Nations in Canada. My father is also Indigenous, First Nations in Canada. My mother is European. My grandparents are both Indigenous as well. And so why I share that with you is because in Canada, there's been a number of struggles for Indigenous people to access justice, to access the law. And yesterday, I want to reflect on one of the first cases that allowed women to be a part of the law in Canada, and that was the Persons case. But I wanted to share with you that we did not have the right as Indigenous people to go to law school until 1960. We also, as citizens, did not have the right to vote in Canada until 1960. And so why I raised the fact of my background with my grandparents, my great-grandparents, and my parents, because their struggle is my struggle. My success is based on the teachings that I received from them, the knowledge that they passed down to me, the hope that they had in the future generations, my being one of them. And so with that, I proudly carry on and do the work that I do, because I know for the most vulnerable citizens within Canada, I'm sometimes their only voice. Just like I know everyone in this room, you're their only voice as well. And that is really important to continue to represent, to ensure that you are carrying messages of hope, making change, making progress, and change is hard. We're still dealing with issues in Canada with regards to Indigenous peoples, Indigenous rights, access to justice, access to lands and resources, because we've been displaced in a great country like Canada. So part of my journey, so that was my background. Part of my journey, why I think it's also important to share my educational pursuits, my background. So you might be surprised to find out, I did not graduate from high school. I don't share that too widely, but I was a dropout. So I was a typical statistic when it came to Indigenous people in education. We have awful rates of graduation. But I didn't allow that to define me. I didn't allow that to stop me and to stop me from pursuing education. I also fled a domestic situation. My ex was extremely violent, and I took our 2 kids and I went back to university as a single parent in 1995. So I know it kind of sounds a little like doom and gloom, but why I'm sharing this is because it's important to know it doesn't matter what stage you are in life, that if you believe in yourself and if you have people that are supporting you and surrounding you, you can do whatever it takes to attain whatever goal you put forward. And I think that's an important lesson for everyone. That is resilience. That is power. And I have to say, education is power. It's freedom. And it's so important to promote education within our communities, especially with our girls. And I have to say, I'm a mother of 3 and a grandmother of 2, and I know the importance of education and the importance of our history and making sure that my kids, my grandkids, have the same opportunities that I have, but also that everyone in society has the same opportunities as I have. Creating support networks, number 1. And your support networks will change throughout time. And that's a good thing, because as we heard from our previous speaker, you need to get rid of those negative ones. They might help you decide that I don't need a part of this, I don't want to be a part of this, and I'm going to move on. And that's one of the best things that you can do, is make sure that you do not allow that negative voice to continue to replay in your heads, because we will replay that narrative all the time. This is one of my favorites. So I shared that because my life has been a bit of a struggle. Everyone's life has been a bit of a struggle. But what I have done is I've owned it, I've embraced it, and I've grown from it. And I think that's one of the most important and powerful things we can do as women. We will own stuff, we will own our own stuff, but don't own anyone else's stuff, because that's the stuff that will drag you and keep you tied down. You will not be able to move forward if you continue to hold on to hurt and trauma and that critical voice in your head. So we need to continue to move on and grow from our experiences. And yes, we will fall down. I fall down, pick myself up, I learn from it, and I move on. One of my favorite inspirational quotes from someone that is so extremely powerful, Maya Angelou. Success is liking yourself, liking what you do, and liking how you do it. So that's success on your terms, for you, by you. And I have to say, it's also about promoting change. Promoting change for the next generation. And in my culture, it's 7 generations down the line. And so making sure what I do today will be meaningful and impactful and change the circumstances of 7 generations behind me. That's a huge responsibility too. So I wanted to talk a little bit about reconciliation and women in the legal profession, because I think there's a lot of similarities between Canada and Ukraine when it comes to pursuing educational pursuits, changing the statistics of women represented in the profession. It's breaking down systemic barriers, and I come at it from an Indigenous lens as well. We have very few Indigenous judges. Most of us don't retain or stay within the profession after 5 years. Retention becomes an issue, and access becomes an issue. And what is most problematic, I think, about that circumstance is that Indigenous people make up most of who is accessing or in the court, especially the criminal system, child protection issues, and we only make up 4% of the population, and in some cases there's 80% Indigenous people in jail. And we don't have the advocates that understand, that have the cultural understanding, that have the sensitive understanding. But we're gonna change that. Just like we'll change what needs to happen here, which is ensuring that women are included in the profession. They're judges, and I am impressed of how young your jurists are here as well. One of my words of advice would be bold. Come at it from a very bold perspective, because that's how you're going to make change. It also is important to ensure that anything that you design is by community, for community. And one of my biggest lines is also ensuring that nothing for us without us. So if there's going to be policy or any changes that come You make sure that you have that voice and that seat at that table, because that's going to be integral to your success, to you moving forward, to ensuring that we make change in this area. We also have to hold each other up. And I know that, you know, I call it the crabs in the bucket syndrome. I'm not sure if that's going to translate very well. But it's where you have people that are just holding you down. And it happens within communities. It happens within, I face it within relationships with other women, that you have that crab in the bucket, because once you get to be successful or you're starting to climb out of the bucket, someone pulls you back down. And we have to stop doing that to each other. We need to stand and lift each other up, be united in what we want to achieve, ensuring that our voices are heard and listened to, and making sure that we come together, because we will be and we are extremely powerful voices when it comes to advancing our issues for us, by us. Agents of change. Be who you want to be who you are meant to be, and be the change maker we need you to be. We includes everyone in this room and everyone else that we can bring along to ensure that we are making positive change, positive steps, and moving forward. That's what it's about, moving forward together. And my analogy, and this probably won't translate very well, is about being in a canoe. And I am from a canoe culture. Everyone has to be in the canoe, everyone has to be paddling in the same direction, and knowing where they're going. And I can see that in here the last 2 days that I've observed and have been privileged to join you all, is that you're in the canoe, you have a direction, and you're doing it together. That's power. I just thought I would leave a couple of questions for you to reflect on as you continue in your deliberations and as you continue to advance. So looking at access to justice for women, what does this look like for marginalized and vulnerable groups? As well, what is your role? So making sure that you know what your role is in advancing these issues and being that voice for vulnerable groups, underrepresented groups within your society, and knowing how you can help, that you are valuable to that, ensuring that we are problem solving, but that you do have a direct role in this, and make sure that you lead with intention with that role. And that's all I have. So in my language, it would be Haichka, Haitsaka. That will not translate.
Thank you for highlighting about the lifting up of other women in our profession. And I would just would like to share some reflection on the moment that it is very important to lift up other women. I recently read the book of Melinda Gates when she described a lot of experience why we need to lift other women, not only in our profession, but in other spheres of our lives, because it is one of the ways to change the life of future generation for better.
Absolutely.
Хочу ремарочку невелику стосовно людей, які тягнуть донизу. Інколи бувають такі ситуації, що ці люди родичі. Вони є родичами, і я, мабуть, хотіла порекомендувати, якщо у вас є такі родичі, і як я зробила в своєму житті, я кожного дня цього родича питаюсь за собою тягнути, не давати таким людям тягнути. Якщо ти не можеш піти від цієї людини, то хоч якось показати всю яскравість того життя, яким ти займаєшся, і хоч трошки підвищити цю особу на вищий рівень. Дякую вам.
ви є представником корінних народів, які можна назвати вразливою групою, і ви є жінкою. Тобто і різні виклики, але чи ви бачите схожість, які стоять, от коли ви є представницею двох груп, які повинні кожна виборювати права? Тобто чи є якісь спільності тут?
There are definitely similarities in those two groups because both are underrepresented, I would say, in Canada. Indigenous people in the law and in any profession, because in order to go to university in Canada, you either had to not identify as Indigenous anymore, so what we would say is give back your status to Canada. And the other way was we had to wait till like 1960 in order to actually go to university. So we have generations that have been I don't want to say left behind, but generations that unfortunately weren't able to pursue education. And it's similar, I would say, with women as well, that for the most part, I mean, I grew up in a house where my mother was a homemaker and she stayed at home and raised children because that's what the norm was at the time. She went back to university later on. And so for her, I mean, that was a great role model for me. But again, she entered university in like late 1980s. So I do think that there is catch up and there definitely are similarities to both groups and similarities here. So it's I don't know how to characterize it. It's very uncanny, and I'm pretty sure that's not going to translate very well either, but how similar our societies are in the struggles.
Дякуємо, дякуємо.